My name is Daniel Brooks, and about 4 years ago I worked as a freelance wedding videographer. If you've ever worked weddings, you know the job is mostly chaos. Late schedules, nervous families, photographers fighting over angles, DJs playing music too loud. But the one thing you don't expect is something you can't explain. And that's exactly what happened during a wedding I filmed in Vermont. To this day, it's the only wedding video I never delivered in its original form. The wedding took place at Lakewood Manor, an old estate outside a small town. The property used to be a private mansion built in the early 1900s, before it was converted into a wedding venue. The place was beautiful. Tall trees, an open lawn, and a quiet lake behind the house while the ceremony would happen. I arrived around 11 a.m. to start filming preparation footage. The bride, Emily, was getting ready upstairs. The groom, Tyler, was with his groomsmen near the lake house. Everything looked like a normal wedding day. But one moment from that afternoon stuck with me. While I was filming shots near the lake, one of the bridesmaids walked over and pointed towards the tree line.
Are you filming that guy too?
She asked. I looked up. What guy? She pointed again.
There was someone standing over there.
But when I looked, there was no one. Just trees and the water. I assumed there was another guest walking around, so I didn't think about it again. The ceremony started at 4 p.m. by the lake. Guests sat in rows of white chairs while the couple exchanged vows. While filming the wide shots, I noticed someone standing near the trees far behind the guests. A man in a dark suit, watching the ceremony. That wasn't unusual. Some guests liked to stand off to the side instead of sitting, but what caught my attention was that he never moved. The entire time. Just standing there watching. Later that night around 9 p.m., I stepped outside to film a few quiet shots of the lake. That's when I saw him again, standing on the wooden dock, same dark suit, looking out over the water. I assumed it was a guest taking a break from the reception, so I zoomed in with the camera. That's when he slowly turned his head and looked directly toward me. I lowered the camera for a moment, then I looked back. The dock was empty. When I got home later that night, I started reviewing the footage. Everything looked normal. The ceremony, the speeches, the dancing. Then I got to the lake footage. The man on the dock was clearly visible, standing there, looking out over the water. Then, halfway through the clip, he slowly turned and looked straight at the camera. But something about the image felt wrong. So I zoomed in. And that's when I noticed it. The man didn't cast a shadow on the dock, even though the reception lights behind the house were bright enough to create shadows for everything else. At that point, I thought maybe it was just a lighting issue. So I kept reviewing the rest of the footage. But the more I watched, the worse it got. Because the man wasn't just in that clip. He appeared in multiple shots. Standing near the trees, standing near the dock, standing far behind the guests, always watching. But here's the strange part. Every time the camera angle changed, the man was closer to the ceremony. Not walking, not moving between frames, just closer in the next shot, like he was slowly approaching. The final clip from the ceremony was a wide shot during the couple's first kiss. Everyone stood up and started cheering. When I zoomed in on the crowd, something made my stomach drop, because the man in the dark suit was now standing directly behind the last row of guests, much closer than he had been earlier. And for the first time, his face was visible, except it didn't look normal. It looked pale, almost gray, like someone who had been underwater too long. At that point, I had a choice. Either give the couple the full footage, or remove the clips where the man appeared. So I edited him out of everything. Every shot, every angle, every moment where he was visible. Then, I delivered the wedding video to the couple. They loved it. They never noticed anything missing. But that's not the real reason I didn't give them the original footage. The real reason is something I noticed 2 weeks later. While backing up the files, I played the dog footage one more time, and I saw something that wasn't there before. When the man turned to face the camera, his mouth slowly opened, like he was trying to say something. At first, there was no sound. Then, right at the end of the clip, the microphone picked up a faint whisper. 3 words. So quiet, I almost missed them. That was my wedding. This happened when I was 26. Back when life still felt temporary. Back when I was still dating the woman who would eventually become my wife. Hannah had always loved the dark. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a look at me kind of way. She just gravitated toward it. Old cemeteries, abandoned churches, storms rolling in over open fields. She once told me that decay was beautiful because it meant something had been loved long enough to grow old. That's why she booked the Jefferson House Hotel. Not because it was the nicest place in town, not because it had the best reviews, but because people online said it was haunted.
It has history.
She told me while showing me the photos.
Real history, not the fake ghost tour kind.
The building looked like something pulled out of another century. Red brick, tall arched windows. A roof lined with old terracotta tiles. It stood slightly apart from the rest of the street, like it didn't quite belong in modern America. It's beautiful, I admitted.
It's tragic.
She corrected me. That should have been my first warning. We drove in late that Friday. The town was quiet. The kind of southern quiet that feels heavy after sunset. Street lamps humming, air thick and warm, cicadas buzzing somewhere out of sight. The hotel glowed softly under exterior lights. Not bright, not welcoming, just present. Inside, the lobby smelled like citrus cleaner layered over old wood and something mineral. Like rain soaked in stone decades ago and never fully left. Our footsteps echoed, even though we weren't being loud, even though there were other guests. Tell me you didn't actually book the haunted floor, I said. Hannah didn't even hesitate.
Oh, I absolutely did.
She smiled like a kid who'd just gotten away with something.
Relax, Tyler. It was cheaper. And if nothing happens, we still get a story.
I laughed. I wish I hadn't. 3rd floor, the receptionist said, sliding the key cards across the counter. Hannah raised her eyebrows at me.
Of course it is.
Of course, what is? I asked.
That's always where they are.
I rolled my eyes. But when the elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, I felt it. It wasn't darkness. It wasn't even silence. It was density, like the air had weight. The hallway lights hummed overhead. The carpet muted our steps. The temperature dropped just slightly. Not enough to see breath, but enough to notice.
Feel that?
Hannah whispered. It's just old insulation, I said. I didn't believe that. The room was beautiful. High ceilings, crown molding, tall windows overlooking rooftops and distant trees. The city lights blinked far below like grounded stars. For hours, nothing happened. We talked, we laughed, we stayed up too late. Eventually, sometime past 2:30 a.m., I drifted off. And at exactly 3:07 a.m., Hannah shook me awake.
Tyler.
She whispered. Her voice wasn't playful. It wasn't excited. It was tight.
Do you hear that?
At first, I thought it was someone pacing in the hallway. Slow steps. 3 forward. Pause. 3 back. Over and over. Then, I realized something. The sound wasn't beside us. It was above us. Directly above. But we were on the top floor. The pacing continued. Measured. Deliberate. Almost impatient. Hannah slowly lifted her phone and started recording. The footsteps stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse. Not quiet. Not peaceful. Oppressive. Then, the corner lamp turned off. Not flickered. Not dimmed. It clicked off. Hannah grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks.
I didn't touch it.
Before I could respond, crack. Something fell from the ceiling. A single terracotta fragment hit the floor and shattered. Dust drifted down slowly. That's when I saw him. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. A tall figure stood near the door, translucent, faded at the edge like smoke trapped in a human shape. He moved toward the window, rigid posture, hands clasped behind his back. 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, just like the sound we heard. His hair flared at the sides, old-fashioned, late 1800s style. He wasn't looking at us, he was looking outside, like he was searching for something that wasn't there anymore. Hannah's phone camera showed nothing, just an empty room. But I could see him, clear as I see you reading this. He stopped pacing. The air shifted. The temperature dropped fast enough that my breath finally showed. The window rattled violently. Outside, something struck the roof. I saw flashes of red, tiles sliding, breaking, falling. The smell hit next. Wet clay, freshly broken earth. Not dust, not mold. Clay. Like a roof had just been ripped open. I blinked, and he was gone. The room was normal again. No cold air, no smell, no sound. Just us, standing there, shaking. We don't remember opening the door, but suddenly, we were in the hallway, barefoot. Lights flickering above us, not violently, just tired, like the building was exhausted. The receptionist looked unsurprised. That bothered me more than anything.
We've heard stories.
She said gently.
Similar ones. He doesn't hurt anyone.
She added. Behind her desk was a portrait. A large oil painting of a man standing proudly in front of the hotel during its early days. My stomach dropped. The hair, the posture, the eyes. It was him. The name on the plaque read, William Carter Whitmore, industrial investor, railroad financier, visionary, builder of the Jefferson House, 1888. Lost ownership during the Panic of 1893. Died 1899, age 54. We changed our room. One staff asked us about tiles. We told them the location and left for other room. Hannah was glowing, not scared, not shaken, inspired.
He wasn't angry.
She said.
He was grieving.
That stuck with me. So I researched. Whitmore had poured everything into the hotel. Imported American terracotta tiles from Ohio. Custom ironwork from Pennsylvania. Locally milled lumber. He called it his legacy. Then, The economic collapse came. He lost it all. The bank repossessed the hotel. Ownership changed. Renovations happened. The original roof tiles? Removed decades later. Replaced. Modernized. Erased. That night, we didn't see rage. We saw repetition. 3 steps forward, 3 back. Like a man pacing over something that no longer existed. He wasn't haunting guests. He was reliving loss. And here's the part that unsettles me most. When we were about to check out, the same staff told me, when the tiles fell in our room, the hotel had reported roof maintenance earlier that week, but nothing had broken. Nothing had fallen. No damage found the next morning. No missing pieces. Except the one in our room, which housekeeping claimed they never saw. It had vanished. Hannah still talks about it sometimes, with excitement, with fascination. I don't, because I keep thinking about something. When he stood by the window, he wasn't looking inside. He was looking at the roofline, at the place where his tiles used to be, at the part of his dream that was taken away. And I wonder if he ever sees the guests, or if all he sees is what's missing. Some places aren't haunted by violence. Some places aren't haunted by death. Some places are haunted by unfinished dreams. My name is Michael Carter, and the strangest thing that ever happened to me occurred on the day I married my wife. Even now, 3 years later, there's one detail about that day that still keeps me awake sometimes. Because I'm fairly certain someone attended our wedding who wasn't supposed to be alive. And the worst part is that my wife has no memory of him at all. Hannah and I got married at a countryside venue in Pennsylvania. It was an old farmhouse property surrounded by oak trees and open fields. The ceremony area sat beneath a huge oak tree that the venue owner said had been there for over 100 years. Hannah loved that tree the moment she saw it. She said it felt peaceful, safe. So that's where we planned the ceremony. The wedding morning went smoothly. Everyone was relaxed, the weather was perfect, and our families were busy helping set things up. But about an hour before the ceremony, something happened that I didn't understand at the time. I stepped outside the barn to get some fresh air while my groomsmen were finishing getting ready. From where I stood, I could see the ceremony chairs arranged across the lawn. But something immediately caught my attention. Someone was already sitting in the back row. That was strange, because guests hadn't been seated yet. The man wore a dark suit, and he sat perfectly still, facing the altar. At first, I assumed he was just an early guest. But then something odd stood out. He was sitting in a chair that shouldn't have been there. Each row had 6 chairs, but the row he was sitting in had 7. I walked a few steps closer, and when I blinked, the man was gone, and the row only had 6 chairs again. I stood there for a moment confused. But eventually, I just assumed my eyes had played a trick on me. After all, it was my wedding day. I figured it was just nerves. The ceremony began at 4 o'clock. Guests filled the seats, music played, and Hannah walked down the aisle toward me. The moment I saw her, everything else disappeared. But halfway through the ceremony, while the officiant was speaking, I glanced toward the back of the lawn. And that's when I saw him again. The same man, standing beneath the oak tree, watching us. He wasn't smiling like the other guests. He wasn't talking or moving. He was just standing there, looking directly at Hannah. I remember thinking maybe he was someone from her family I didn't recognize. But something about the way he stood there felt wrong, like he didn't belong there. The reception went late. Around 10 o'clock, Hannah and I stepped outside for a moment to get away from the noise. The lawn was empty and quiet. The ceremony chairs were still up in the dark. Then Hannah suddenly grabbed my arm.
Michael?
She whispered. I looked where she was pointing. Someone was sitting in the last row. A man in a dark suit. My stomach dropped. It was the same man. Hannah squinted into the darkness.
Do you know him?
No, I said. We stood there watching him. He wasn't looking at us. He was staring at the altar. Then slowly, he turned his head and looked straight at Hannah. A few seconds later, Hannah blinked and quietly said,
He's gone.
The chair was empty again. A few weeks later, our photographer sent us the wedding photos. While we were going through them, Hannah suddenly called me over.
There's someone in this picture.
She said. It was a wide shot of the ceremony. At the very back of the lawn, beneath the oak tree, a man in a dark suit stood watching us. The photographer insisted no one had been standing there when she took the picture. A few months after the wedding, we visited Hannah's grandmother. At one point, Hannah stepped into the kitchen to help with something. While she was gone, I mentioned the strange man from the photo. Her grandmother didn't laugh. She just stared at the picture for a long time. Then she said something quietly.
I hoped he wouldn't come.
I felt a chill run through me. What do you mean? She hesitated. Then she asked me something unexpected.
Did Hannah ever tell you about the accident?
I shook my head. What accident? Her grandmother sighed. Then she told me a story Hannah had never mentioned. 3 years before I met Hannah, she had been in a serious car accident. She wasn't alone in the car. She had been with a man named Daniel. Her grandmother said they had been together for almost 4 years. They were planning to get married. Then one night, while driving home from dinner, their car was hit by a truck. Daniel died at the scene. Hannah survived. But when she woke up in the hospital, something strange had happened. She couldn't remember Daniel. Not his name, not their relationship, not the years they spent together. Doctors said it was trauma-related memory loss. Some memories just never came back. Her family decided not to push her. Eventually, she moved on with her life. And years later, she met me. I asked her grandmother one last question. Did Daniel ever come to this venue? She nodded slowly.
Yes.
My chest tightened.
That oak tree, where you got married.
I never told Hannah what her grandmother told me. She seems happy not knowing. But sometimes, I still look at that photo. And every time I zoom in on the man beneath the tree, something about his expression bothers me. Because he isn't angry. He isn't smiling either. He's just watching the ceremony, like someone attending a wedding that was supposed to be his. And sometimes, I wonder about something that I've never said out loud. If Hannah had never lost her memory that night, would I have been the one standing alone under that tree instead?